Okay, I think you can hear me. So my name is Elizabeth, and so I'm in the National Institute of Education. So thank you so much for inviting me and a couple of my colleagues. So at the Office of Education Research is basically we have 3 research labs that actually do research in education. So I'm in the Learning Sciences lab where we work closely with teachers. Usually we do design-based research, and we actually have interventions that actually make a difference in schools in Singapore. We have the Education and Cognitive Development Lab, which actually does more with more psychological and motivational types of research. And lastly, we have the Center for Research, Pedagogy and Practice, which deals a bit more with overall trends, baseline studies, how the Singapore education system has changed over the years. But in short, the Office of Education Research, we actually do basically we are focused on more of the K-12 sector, which is kindergarten to all the way to JC2, junior college 2, 18-year-old students. And so we actually do projects with teachers and basically this set of schools and systems. And also we also have a couple of grants, which I think Min mentioned yesterday. So we have the Ministry of Economies Fund and also the EduLab Fund, which is open for all IHL, more local IHL colleagues who are interested. I guess I'll talk more about them through the links later. If you have any interest, we can talk more after my talk. Yeah, but here more to share about my research, which is to do with teamwork. So it actually is related to a bit of what Caroline has just shared a bit about how team-based learning. So I'll be looking at how we can leverage learning analytics to formatively assess teamwork. Okay, so this actually takes a slightly different tack from, I would say it's so much into the AI part, but what I'll be looking at learning analytics more in general, of types of learning analytics, and then why is teamwork important, as we all know. I have Malaysia has talked about it, and also the particular innovation that my team and I have been doing, which is called my Groupwork Buddy. Okay, so there are many different types of learning analytics. I think you've heard yesterday social network analytics, which is to do with social networks such as discussion forums and how networks are formed. We just heard Discourse analytics from Caroline, and she showed you the different conversational agents and even the NLP related text mining. Okay, and then there's also content analytics, which is more not to do with the actual content in this case, but to do with how things are recommended to you, the different types of content are recommended to the user. And then there's this thing called disposition analytics. So disposition analytics is to do with the disposition of a person, how a person feels and rates a certain thing. So in the sense, it's more to do with similar more to a survey, and a survey in the sense of ratings and what he or she believes and has a certain perspective about certain thing, and how this is seen, visualized in certain visual analytics. And lastly, context analytics, which is to do with how the environment of the learning environment in that system actually affects how it can be put together to actually create this environment for the learner. Okay, so I'll be looking mainly at discourse, and disposition analytics a bit more in my intervention later. Okay, so as we know, teamwork and collaboration is really important. We all realize it's really important. We have to work in teams, not only within our department or within our project area, but also across disciplines. And all across the world, this is known. And in OECD, they have a set of, they actually call this DC Code, short form, definition and selection of competencies that are important for school and for life. Okay, and you can see interacting in groups is one of them. And in Singapore, the Ministry of Education has also defined its own competencies for the learners. And this is seen nicely in this thing called, we call this affectionately a Swiss roll, because it looks like a Swiss roll. Yeah, and this is called the Framework for 21st Century Competencies and Student Outcomes. And you can see at the corner here, collaboration is one of the key core skills that every learner is encouraged, targeted to have in the Singapore education system. So how do we want to encourage collaboration? Okay, there are many ways that you can like even make sense of collaboration. And first, we know what is teamwork, what is collaboration, right? So has been a challenge for educators and even researchers to assess collaboration, because there's many definitions of teamwork and collaboration, and there are also pedagogical, methodological, and practical issues that are different in different contexts. So how to assess? So the problems are compounded by large class sizes, and how do you be fair in awarding credit? So I think yesterday David was talking a bit about how different ways of trying to award credit. So, but what is known about teamwork? I focus mostly on teamwork because it focuses is related to a smaller group of learners who are focused on a certain task to do certain thing. So it's a bit more, I would say, a bit more narrow than collaboration per se. So teamwork in the literature has been defined in many ways. There are different skills associated with teamwork, such as decision making, adaptability, and interpersonal relation. And I can just add to this transactivity, yeah, and the social factors. Okay, so there are many. I would say teamwork is a multi-dimensional concept in some. And the next later challenge is how do you assess? Okay, so there are many different types of ways. There's self-ratings, there's situational judgment tests, the performance tests. But one thing that we think is really important is this thing called formative assessment. I think we're all quite familiar with our summative assessments, which are our end-of-year exams, where there's a grade given for something. But formative assessments is basically all assessments that come before that last assessment. Okay, so it's something that is for your learning. So it's assessment for learning. And it actually helps the learner to know where he or she is going, where's he or she right now, and how am I going to get there. So it includes activities such as sharing the success criteria with learners. It's related to how peer feedback or peer assessment, and it's the formative use of summative tests. Okay, so this is something that we wanted to really look at, formative assessment. And in terms of how we're going to do it, is in terms of technology, because technology can be used to help to monitor a large number of teams. And also, we wanted to look at multiple measures. So what is our approach? Okay, so we have developed first a measure of teamwork competency, which we think are particularly applicable to the Singapore learner, yet with international and theoretical relevance. And our context, or my context, was in the context of in the secondary school of lower secondary students. So they're 13 to 14-year-olds. And we did a multi-method approach for students in small teams of 3 to 4 or 4 to 6, depending on the class. And we focus on it being formative in nature. So really in the process of them collaborating in their teams. Okay, so these are the 4 measures of teamwork that we focused on: coordination, mutual problems monitoring, constructive conflict, and team emotional support. I'll not go through the details today, but we're more looking at the overall context. And one thing very important we developed from the literature and also from as we designed it with our teachers and students was this pedagogical framework called the team and self-diagnostic learning framework. So this is based on experiential learning, collective learning, and learning ethics process model, as well as socially shared regulation. So what it entails is students are involved in some natural teamwork activities. So it's not only online, but it can be in the classroom or outside, whatever team activity that they are doing. So they gain this concrete experience. And from there, they're actually asked to rate themselves and their peers, basically to help them to gain awareness of where they are, where they stand in their teamwork. And this is through our means of analytics. And after that, after they gain awareness, what do? They need to make sense of what they just did and what they are shown. So this is a phase of reflection and making sense of it. And we actually that entailed for us, we put in some goal-setting measures for them to actually set steps to actually grow their teamwork competency, so that they can actually at least change and make sense of that change. And this cycle can repeat itself in the course of this subject that they are in. So, and this was also supported by a technological platform, which is called my Groupwork Buddy. And so we have developed this based on that team and self-diagnostic learning framework. And so this is a project that was meant to help students in their team collaboration and also teachers in the pedagogical practice of facilitating collaborative inquiry tasks. And it uses the design-based research with mixed methods. So actually right now we are in the second trial cycle of it. And we are focusing on actually use existing curriculum and Singapore schools that have a project component. We actually work with the teachers to use the system and to use this pedagogy together with the existing complementary technologies, pedagogies. So what is the learning analytics aspect inside MicroBuddy? As I mentioned, it basically focuses on the disposition analytics, and we are still in the process of looking at discourse analytics. So I chiefly focus on self and peer ratings of teamwork competencies as an awareness mechanism to provide that formative feedback about students' teamwork. So you can see here, students are actually rating themselves on the system and well as their peers. And this is then visualized to them in what I've called a micro profile, knowing that it's not the entire profile of their teamwork, but something that is macro, is just based on the recent teamwork experience that they have done, and so that they can see how they would like to change it in the future. Okay? So we have this thing called personal micro profile, where they actually it shows their self ratings as well as how their peers have rated them. And this is they have in the team there's 3 or 4, so there are 3, for example, the other 3 team members. This is average for the other 3 peer members. So the one in blue is themselves, and the one in pink or red is actually the average of all their peer ratings. So this is the personal micro profile, where they see gives the 4 dimensions of teamwork, where they stand. And there's also a team micro profile, where this is the average of all the peer ratings of the team, and they see as a team, what are they sort of strong at? And this team can say slightly lower in mutual performance monitoring. So we show this to them, and we actually ask them to make sense of it. Okay. But before that, this is our second trial already, and realized that students, one of the feedback we got was that we want to see different types of visualizations. So that was the feedback from the first trial. So now we have added more. We added, instead of just a radar chart, we've added a bar chart and a vote, because the table is there. And so our discourse analytics part is still a work in progress. Probably something we want to work with different people here to go more in this area. So how we're going to use a coding scheme to actually help us measure the different indicators, because we have a chat there. But one other problem that we do have, because this is in a blended learning situation where there's both offline and online, students don't use the chat too much. Yeah. So after this, after the team experience and they actually read their peers, they actually make sense of that macro profile. And so we actually scaffold them with questions about what do you think about this dimension, how is this important for teamwork? And after that, we actually ask them to mix. So based on this, what your reflection, set steps, set targets that you want to do to actually help you to improve on that dimension of your teamwork. And this is done personally, and then we get them together in groups to actually reflect on it in the team as a whole. Based on the team micro profile, what dimension of teamwork do you want to improve on? How do you want to go about improving it, and set steps for your teamwork? So after this, this activity, they'll continue in their teams for whichever group project that they are in. And we also have this thing called a status check, where we actually get students to individually update their status on the system, as well as teams to update their status on the system. Yeah. So I mean, I guess I talked a bit. So I would like to just show you how it was done through a video, and also some of the feedback from the teacher and the students in using this activity.
Understand more about teamwork and become better team players. At key time points in team project's duration, the platform provides a series of surveys to allow students to reflect on their teamwork behaviors and plan ways to improve them. This makes students more aware of their teamwork competency and it instills in them the value of teamwork. Teachers are also able to monitor their students' teamwork competency and take action if necessary.
I think getting the students to buy in the fact that my Groupwork Buddy portal is not just another project. It is something that is able to benefit them in the long run, particularly their teamwork competency, which is one of the key competency that they need to have in the 21st century.
My Groupwork Buddy allows my teammates to actually rate like how well I am in certain areas. Through this rating, I can actually learn more about myself and know my weakness and my strength. And as for the team assessment, our team is to improve on our teamwork in our efficiency. Personally, I had experienced a conflict in my team. This is because 2 out of 5 team members from my team were rather uncooperative. We felt that they were not putting as much effort as the rest of us. As a result, the rest of us felt that it is rather unfair because we are getting the same credits. But through my Groupwork Buddy portal, we decided to feedback to them about our opinion and wanted them to improve. And this actually got through to them, and they actually know where we're coming from, and subsequently they changed and tried to put in more effort.
Yeah, so credits to this video was Liana, who helped us a lot, and also it was shown in the previous conference recently. Yeah, so I think from what you hear about the kids sharing, these are some other feedback from the students. I mean, there are definitely the strengths of this intervention. For students, they could understand their weakness and strengths with just one look, so they kind of like the visualization. But at the same time, yeah, I mean, definitely there are improvements. They said they could know like how this could help us improve in that specific area, which is something we kind of know, to how to the next step of it. So based on that, the area that they want to grow in, they want to work on how can they basically improve in that area. Okay? Some other students say this helps me to compare my opinions and my groups. Okay, and there's another student that said I can see which point I am weak at and my strong points, and which I get to know which part I should improve on. I must add, in our earlier first trial, we actually just had ratings, but after that we also added a bit of peer comments. So there was some free form for students to actually add peer comments, and we gave them guidelines so that they such as value your peers, so that students would not write too critical things without considering the thoughts of the other student. So this is some of student feedback, and so we had the experimental and control group for one of the schools, and so actually we had 2 schools, 2 different classrooms, 2 different types of lessons. There's 2 different teachers, everything. So what we found for both schools was that at the end of the day, what mattered more was actually for students who said, and they reported through the status checks, that they made effort to achieve their teamwork targets. So they said, okay, yes, I did it. I did that step of improving that teamwork target. And we found that when students reported that, their peers actually rated them higher for most of the teamwork dimensions. So we realized that, and this is also sort of confirmed in our focus group discussions. Students said that these steps they had to take it to heart. Yeah, so they had to take it seriously. Yeah. So we find that the goal-setting aspect of this intervention is I guess one of the crucial elements to encourage students to actually take the steps that they set about teamwork seriously and to apply them. Yeah. So towards the conclusion, so we actually use, I would say it's still a very simple type of learning analytics, the disposition analytics, and these were leveraged for a pedagogical purpose. So I guess it sort of reiterates a bit of what Dragon was saying yesterday in yesterday's keynote, that it's not, learning analytics is not standalone, it's not just the data, but it comes with a certain learning design, a certain pedagogy and theory, so that to create this whole learning environment that is that will be for their certain learning purpose. For my group of buddies case, the analytics were able to provide a quick and almost immediate visualization to help students to know where they stand in their teamwork competency. And but I think together with the pedagogy and also with the system, we're able to help students to make sense of what it means and to set goals in order to help them grow, which I would think are the key growth mechanisms. So as you can see, there's still a lot more work, both research and development work to be done. And we do want to work with others here to actually grow in our expertise. And also to provide further support for both the students and the teachers. So there are many key challenges, technical as well as pedagogical, in terms of because when you work with schools and teachers, there's a lot of, besides the coordination part, there's also a lot of the buy-in from the teachers, where you have to work with them to try to arrange their timetables and to help them to facilitate the teamwork part. So there's also that part, but also the technical part to make it as easy to use for the students and teachers, as well as to the next steps for us will be thinking of how to provide more useful prompts for the students so they know what to do based on some of the steps that they have written. Yeah, and to know what are good steps for them as they write. What are the good steps in their teamwork that they write about that they want to do, and which are the good steps so they know they should really do these steps. Yeah. So this brings me to the end, and I want to just really thank the team, which includes Jennifer Taran and Ihuan, Divya, Mia, Varun, and also our teacher collaborators. And so thank this was supported by these grants. So yeah, thank you.